chapter, I talk a little bit about the writing process, and the first goal when you do this is to be entertaining, not to be boring, because as you mentioned, you're competing against a lot of things, and if you go up in front of a bunch of kids and you do a boring reading of a book, they're going to say, "Well, that's boring."
Oh yeah.
So you make it fun.
Yeah, well, it sounds like your books are, it draws you into it. I mean, you got a good twist to it. I mean, you got a little bit of the paranormal into it. You got like how the raccoons, got together and formed the ninja group, club or whatever. It really I think it would, with younger people, they would be intrigued in it. I mean, I've read some other books that authors have sent me that want to come on my show, and I get past the first 5 pages and I'm going, no, this won't work out. I mean, this won't work out. I was intrigued last time you were on the show because I had a lot of people say that we need more people writing books like you do.
We do, and kind of there is if you write a book, I always because people say, because kids do love these books, so it's one of those things where I get good feedback. I know kids are loving the book. I have 8 of them. I wouldn't have written 8 if somebody wasn't reading them. I had actually one of the reasons I finished my last one was because I had several children come in and say, "Oh, raccoons," and they're like, "Oh, I have all those," and so they were all caught up. They had read all 7, so I really needed to write the 8th one. And
now, since you've written the 8th one, what are you gonna write now? What's next on the plate for Kevin?
Well, I am starting the 9th one, because the 8th one is the one that came out in July, is the one about the Jersey Devil. So I am writing the one that's about dinosaurs. It's the Totally Ninja Raccoons Discover the Lost World. So I am writing the next one, and that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going is I have, and that's the nice thing. It's both nice and a little strange, because being a part of into the with your reading public every day, because they read them and then they'll come up to me like, "Oh, when's the next one?" And it's both a little I need to write, and at the same time it's really gratifying because I know children are reading them, and it's one of the nice things about writing for children. I found with me is that they give you feedback. So if a child reads it and loves it, he'll let you know, and if he hates it, he'll probably let you know that too.
Oh yeah. I mean, they'll hide it away, and then you sit there and ask them, "Did you read it?" Yeah. Well, what's it about? Oh, I don't remember. They never read it.
Well, I have a nice story about because we're a tourist town during the summer. So I had a family. This happened about 2 weeks ago. So we had a family that was camping in the area, and we're open on Sundays this time of year. So they come in on a Sunday. It was a rainy Sunday. So it wasn't really nice to do anything outside. So they come into the bookstore, and he bought my last Ninja Raccoon, and then they stayed in town for the next couple of days, and he come in on Wednesday, and he's like, "Oh, do you have the next Ninja Raccoon written?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't yet." That's and his mom said that he had read it twice in the last 2 days.
Oh wow! And how old was the kid? He was
10.
Yeah, that is really intriguing because reading it twice. I mean that is honors to you, because usually a lot of kids they'll have a hard enough time reading a book once, let alone reading it twice. So that tells me you got enough suspense in that book that is keeping interest to a 10-year-old.
No, they're fun. So they're, like I said, it's another child might not have been as interested in that because maybe he didn't like cryptids or that. So like I said, there's not. I mean, every author wants to think that their book is for everybody, and I want to think that too, but it's not. I mean, there are some people that aren't going to read my books. But my goal is to write for a certain audience, and if you like cryptids, and if you like ninjas, and if you like raccoons, you're going to like these books because they are fun. And like I said, I've had lots of people. Like I said, at this time, like I have 8 of them out now, and I have people that are all caught up. So I have some people that, because the Jersey Devil came out like in the beginning of July. So I have several people local that are all caught up. So that's going to make me start writing the next one. I'm right now I'm kind of plotting it out, but I'm going to have to sit down and really work on it in earnest because there's people that are waiting. So I'm going to start working on the next one.
Well, I certainly would, because it tells there's a demand. I will say this, Kevin, doing even my talk show, back about a little over a year ago when Art contacted me and talked me in getting back into doing something rather than, ride my motorcycle. That's all I was doing, retired. I was bored, and, Art would call me up occasionally and he'd ask me what I was doing. And I said, not much of anything. He talked me into getting into doing what I'm doing now. And what I noticed, and what scares me, and then it'll make sense here after what I say. Okay, so give me about a minute. What I did before I decided to go ahead and do this, invest my time and money to get this going, is I listened to hundreds of different paranormal talk shows on the internet. And I came to a conclusion, a lot of people can go out and buy a $10, $20 microphone off of eBay, plug it in their computer, and start talking and think that they got a talk show and that, they're experts at it. And they do a lot of damage because they don't know what they're talking about. The show quality is really bad. And it just really offended me because, like I said, I got into broadcasting back in 1976. So I'm not a new person when it comes to, talking on the radio. And I really got offended with a lot of these people's shows. And then Facebook Live, people get on there and, they're sitting there doing a whatever type of show, and people are walking by drinking a can of beer and they're trying to do a show. And I'm going, this is weird. Now, well, the reason why I'm saying this is I have had so many people send me, I got a whole room full of books. Authors send me books all the time. And I haven't read your book, so you need to send me at least one of your books down the road. But I read, their books when they send them to me, or read part of it if I can. And I don't understand. I don't know. I blame that, I guess, on Amazon and these other companies that do self-published books, that they'll publish anything, right off the bat. But it's really bad. It's like Amazon. You can go on there and write a book, upload everything to them, and they print it on demand and then send it out. And the quality of the type sucks. The proofreading is not there. The story plots are not there. So, it's just a lot of people out there writing books that all of a sudden think they can be a writer. And you got to have the imagination. You got to be able to put all this stuff together to make it intriguing. Even if it's for a young kid or if it's for an adult. And that's where I think a lot of problem is. A lot of young people now, I'm talking young, in their 30s, don't even know how to write a book because they probably never read one when they were young.
I agree completely, because one of the biggest, I believe, I can't remember which writer, but basically every writer that I admired growing up, I mean, I don't know how many books I read. I still read, I probably read at least 2 books a week. And I grew up reading thousands of books, and every writer, I believe it was Stephen King, he's like, if you want to be a writer, you have to be a reader, because I have thousands of books that I've read that I have an idea on how they put together. And then, of course, even once you write a book, that's all a place to start. But writing a book is different. But you still need some of these, something to go off on. When you first start writing, you usually start off writing like one of your favorite authors. Just like if you wanted to be a musician, you don't just grab a guitar and start playing. I mean, you listen to thousands of hours of music. You have to love music. You usually, what most musicians do is they start off singing or playing their favorite songs, and then you learn to play your own songs. But you have to learn somewhere. And I use music because sometimes I kind of see it almost as sometimes writing a book I almost see as writing a song, because you write the basic plot, but then there's undertone, there's like back rhythm. It's it all comes together, and when you're first doing it, it's like when I do the first couple drafts, like I don't even let anybody see it until I have like at least a second draft.
Oh yeah.
And then I have an editor, because even for the children's book, because like one of the mistakes a lot of people make is they're like, well, I'm my own editor. Well, that's your first mistake. There might be a handful of masters out there that can be their own editor, but I haven't met any of them yet. I mean, even Stephen King has an editor. Ray Bradbury had an editor. You have to get it to an editor. You have to refine it. You have to smooth the plot out.
Yeah, to make it flow. I mean, I got a stack of books over here, that I started reading, and there was no flow to the book. And, I actually went to the point of one of these people, and I'm not mentioning names, but I asked him, I said, well, how long did it take you to write this book? And it was like a 330 some odd page book. Just take a guess how long it took him to write that book from the beginning to the end.
I'm going to guess that he said 30 days.
Now, how about a week and a half?
Week and a half?
He said a week and a half to write it. It just came out of his head. And you know what? I maybe if I don't do drugs, but maybe if I started doing drugs, I don't drink. Maybe I drink 2 beers a year. Maybe if I drank those 2 beers at one time and then started reading this book, it would make sense.
Yeah, that might be a rough draft, but I spend more time in that on a children's book. And actually, I've written, I have an adult book that I wrote, an adult novella, and that one took me, it's like, I don't even keep track of how long it takes me, because it'd be depressing. Because sometimes, like anything, it takes how long it takes. Because sometimes I'll work on a book, and then I'll have to put it aside. And I usually do, like, even for my children's books, I usually do like at least 4 or 5 drafts. Like I said, I don't even let my wife read it until I'm on at least the second draft.
Oh yeah, because I'm willing to bet you write your first draft, right, and then you read it a couple times, and you go, well, no, I need to change this a little bit. I need to do this. And you do it the second time, you read it again. Oh, I can make it a little bit better. I can do this and this. I need to add this into it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. And one of the first things when somebody writes a book, and this is one of the things I talk about when I get in front of kids, is like, give yourself permission to suck, because like the first draft, and this is like for some of us who are a little bit like wanting to be perfect, and nobody is, but when the first draft is just get something done, and that's important, and that can take a while. That takes longer than most people think, but then you have to go back and you got to fix it. You got to smooth it out. You have to add to it, take away from it. And what you mentioned, and I've seen this myself, a lot of people like do that first draft and like they get it done and they're like, oh, I'm done. No, the hard part's just started.
Oh yeah. So now, do you self-publish your books, or do you have a publisher, or how do you do it?
Well, actually, yes and no. So actually, I do self-publish, but what I did in essence is I set up my own publishing house. So I set up my publishing house called For My Shelf Books and Gifts. And when I started writing these, I did do the whole agent thing. I sent out I did a lot of research, and I wrote the first Ninja Raccoon. And once I was pretty happy with it, I started looking for an agent. But before I started looking for an agent, I did a lot of work. And what most of them want to do is, most of them want to know what you're working on now. Because they don't want this one-hit wonder. They don't want somebody who says, oh, I've just done this one book, and now I need you to pick it up. At least you've, your Lee